Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. Welcome to our interview session. Today we will talk about the development of education in Malaysia and how it connects to the National Education Philosophy or Falsafah Pendidikan Kebangsaan, known as FPK, and the Teacher Education Philosophy or Falsafah Pendidikan Guru, known as FPG.
So, we are very lucky to have with us today Jazra Patrick, who is a student, to share their thoughts on this important topic. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to join and share my views on the topic.
Okay, to begin, could you tell us how education in Malaysia has developed since independence?
Yes, of course. So, education in Malaysia has changed a lot since the independence in 1957. Right after the independence, the government saw education was a very important part of building the nation. So, one of the first things that the Prime Minister done was on the Razak Report of 1956. This report wanted to create one education system that could bring unity among all races in Malaysia. At the same time, it respected cultural diversity in our country. So, later on, the education policy of 1961 gave power to these policies and helped expand access to schools. And after that, Malaysia continued to improve the system. For example, in the 1980s, the integrated curriculum for primary school or KBSR was introduced. In the 1990s, we had the integrated curriculum for the secondary schools or known as KBSM. These were very important because they did not only focus on academic subjects but also on skills, values, and also co curricular activities. So, in more recent times, we have the Malaysian Education Blueprint from 2013 to 2025. This blueprint explains 11 shifts to transform the system. Some of the goals include improving the quality of teachers, focusing on higher order thinking skills, making the schools more efficient, and ensuring every child gets equal access to education. From the beginning until now, we can see that our country, Malaysia, wants an education system that provides knowledge, skills, and also good values.
That's very interesting. Can you share with us some key milestones that really shaped the education system we see today?
Alright, I think I have the answer for that. Just let me. Alright, so one of the major milestone was the decision to make Bahasa Malaysia as the main medium of communication in the schools. So this helped to build a national unity and identity for the students. Although it was not always easy for the community, another important milestone was the curriculum reforms. In the past, the system focused on too much on the exams. So over time, the country reforms balance academics learning with values, creativity, and also co-curricular activities. Through the introduction of KBSR and KBSM, it was very important because it encouraged a more holistic education. Students were not just memorizing facts anymore. They also learned moral values, problem solving skills, and social awareness. Later on in the 2000s, there was a strong focus on STEM education, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This was to prepare students for a global economy that values technology. More recently, we see a focus on the 21st century learning skills like communication, creativity, critical thinking, and also collaboration among the students. These milestones shows that Malaysia keeps adapting its education system for the future of our nation.
Okay. Next question is, how do these developments show Malaysia's goal of building a balanced society?
So this development shows that Malaysia wants students who are not only smart but also balanced in their characters. For example, when students take part in sports, clubs, and uniform units, they learn teamwork skills with other people and leadership skill in also discipline, which is the most important values. So when the teacher includes moral values in their lessons, student learns about respect, honesty, and also responsibility. Even in the classroom, when students from different backgrounds work together, they learn to appreciate diversity that they have with each other. So this shows that Malaysia wants to create a society that is knowledgeable and skilled, but also harmonious among all the different backgrounds people, moral and also responsible citizen. That balance is the main goal of our education system.
That's very interesting. So, what about challenges? What are some of the challenges Malaysia has faced in developing its education system, and how has the country tried to overcome them?
That's a very important question. One big challenge is meeting the needs of a diverse population. As we know, Malaysia is a multi-ethnic and multi-religious country. It's not easy to create an education system that fits everyone and their needs while also respecting the differences. That is why Bahasa Malaysia was made the main language of instruction. But at the same time, vernacular schools were allowed to continue their traditions. It is a balance between unity and diversity. Another challenge is the difference between urban and rural education. Students in big cities often have better access to facilities, technology, and experienced teachers, while students in rural areas may face shortages. To overcome this, the government built more schools and hostels and improved the internet access and placed teachers in rural schools. We also face the challenge of globalization and technology. The world is changing very fast in front of our eyes, so the curriculum has to prepare the students for jobs that may not even exist today. That is why the education blueprint focuses on 21st century learning. As we know, it is about digital literacy and lifelong learning for the students. These challenges are not easy, but Malaysia is always working to overcome all the challenges for the future of our students.
I agree with that because Malaysia is indeed a very diverse country full of ethnic and religions. So sometimes I feel bad for the people in rural area who does not have the same advantages as people in urban areas. And with us living in technology days nowadays, it's kind of not fair for them students in rural areas to not being able to catch up with the students in urban areas. So your answer is actually very, very interesting. I really like the answer. We have to balance the unity and diversity. The governments have to build more schools, and it's I agree with that with the 21st century learning, digital literacy, and lifelong learning. These challenges, like you said, they are not easy, but we can overcome them.
Yes.
So, The next question I will be asking you is, could you explain the National Education Philosophy, or FPK, in your own words?
Alright. So I can answer the question. So the FPK was officially introduced in 1988, but its spirit was already there since the Independence Day. The FPK says that education in Malaysia is continuous effort to develop individuals in a holistic and integrated way. This means that education should focus on intellectual, spiritual, emotional, and on the physical development of the students, all guided by the faith in God. So, the goal is to produce people who are not only knowledgeable and skilled, but also morally correct, responsible, and able to contribute to society and our country. In simple words, the FPK reminds us that education is not just about the brain, but also about the body, the heart, and the soul.
Okay, so the next question is, how is the development of education in Malaysia connected to the FPK?
Alright, so I think that every major changes in our education system reflects the principle of the FPK. For example, in the curriculum reforms in 1980s and 1990s, there were they need to make sure that the moral values and co-curricular activities were part of the subjects. This shows a balance between intellectual and moral development. So the Malaysia Education Blueprint from 2013 and 2025 also emphasized values such as ethics and national unity, which align with the FPK as we know. Even they are starting to push towards the 21st century skill, which is still based on the FPK because the ultimate goal is still the same, to produce a balanced and responsible individuals who can contribute to society and our country.
I couldn't agree more. We all know that schools nowadays, I mean, back then, they are mostly focusing on uh, academical subjects, right? So it makes the student feels like a robot where they have to only remember things without having to build their physicality and etc. So with development of education in Malaysia connecting to FBK, it made the it makes schools in Malaysia not only for academics, but they also add in co-curricular activities, which will balance the life of students in school. And I think that is, like you said, that is actually very, very true in my opinion, in your opinion as well, because it shows balance between intellectual and moral development.
Yeah.
And also, as you mentioned about the Malaysia Education Blueprint 2013 and 2025, which emphasizes values, ethnics, and national unity, they are in fact aligned with FPK, like you said. And pushing digital learnings with 21st century skill is still based on FPK. And I agree with what you said the ultimate goal is, which is to produce balanced and responsible individuals rather than a robot that can do good in academics.
Yes.
Okay, for the next question is, can you give me some simple classroom examples that shows how FPK is practiced?
All right. I think I can give the answer for that. So, for example, imagine a science teacher teaching about pollution. The teacher does not only explain the scientific process of how pollution works, but also reminds the student about their duty to protect the environment. This way, the student can learn the knowledge and also the moral responsibility. Or also think about the co-curricular activities like debate clubs. Students learn to argue with facts, but they also learn about respect, confidence, and teamwork among them. And also think about sports and cultural activities. Also about the uniform units that they join, such as the penyelamat bomba, the cadet police, and also the PBSM clubs. These uniform units can shape the students on the aspects such as their physical, the emotional, and also their social aspect of the students, not just their academics. Even simple actions like rewarding efforts instead of only results shows that the teacher care about the students and to develop the students into a whole person, not just based on their exam scores.
I see your point there. But in Malaysia, there are some people who did not agree with FPK. They said it is only an ideal and not practical. So how would you respond to it?
I believe the FPK is both an ideal and a practical guide. So it is true that FPK describes an ideal person, but this vision gives us a direction. For example, when the Minister of Education designs a new curriculum, they always look back to the FPK. When the teachers are trained, their professional standards are linked to the FPK. So they need to be up to the standards of the FPK to teach the students into a balanced and holistic individual. Even when schools organize activities like moral education or national unity program, they are following the spirit of the FPK. So it's basically like a compass. The FPK shows us where we want to go and where we need to be headed to. We may never reach perfection, as we know. So, but it keeps the whole education system moving in the right direction. So, without the FPK, I think our policies might only focus on exams and the economic needs of our countries. Without the FPK, we remember that education is about developing people, not just producing workers in the near future of our country.
Well said, uh, Mr. Jezra. And of course, it might look like a crazy ideal dream, but still, we cannot make any improvements without having to plan about this thing, right? So I think even though people, I mean, like you said, people they criticize on the FDK, but they still have to know that not everything can reach perfection, but they can surely improve. Okay, now let's talk about teachers. Could you explain what the teacher education philosophy which is FPG means?
So the FPG and the FPK are closely connected. The FPK shows us the vision of the kind of students we want to produce for the future of our country. But this vision cannot happen without the teachers. So the FPG prepares teachers with the qualities needed to realize the FPK. For example, if the FPK wants students to become critical thinkers and responsible citizens, when the FPG ensures that teachers are trained to teach in ways that engage thinking, reflection, and responsibility, the two philosophies support each other.
So you said that FPK and FPG is important to improving our education system in Malaysia. So how is the FPG connected to FPK?
So, the FPG explains the kind of teacher Malaysia wants to produce. It says that a teacher must be professional, caring, creative, and ethical to the students. The teachers should have strong knowledge in their subject, but they should also be the role models with good values for the students. The FPG reminds us that teaching is not only a job, but also a trust and responsibility that they need to carry. Teachers are seen as the nation builders. If the students are the seeds, then the teachers are the gardens who nurture them.
So, as you said before, you said that FPG and FPK is very important to for our country to improving our education system in Malaysia. So how does the FPG is connected to the FPK?
So, the FPK and FPG are closely connected. The FPK shows us the vision of the kind of students we want to produce. But this vision cannot happen without the teachers. So, the FPG prepares the teachers with the important qualities that are needed to realize the FPK. For example, if the FPK wants students to become critical thinkers and responsible citizens, then the FPG needs to ensure that the teachers that are teaching the students are trained in a ways that teaches the students to encourage thinking, reflection, and also responsibility. The two philosophies support each other.
I see what you mean there. So the FPK is basically like the plan, and FPG is how we um, how we solve the plan. Like you said, if we have a vision of creating a students that can do everything, we have to have teachers that can shape the students to do everything. They 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 do actually connect to each other like seeds and a gardener. Okay, now what qualities should a Malaysian teacher have according to the FPG?
So, a good Malaysian teacher should have should be knowledgeable in their subject. I think that's a must, and they should be knowledgeable, and they should also be skilled in their teaching methods, and they need to be professional in their conducts in the classroom. They should also be creative and adaptable since the education system of our nation keeps changing. The curriculum of our nation keeps changing each and every year. Most importantly, they should have strong moral values and empathy towards the student. For example, a teacher may use technology in their classroom to make the lessons more interesting for the students. But at the same time, the teacher must also show passion and care for the students who are struggling. Teachers must also keep learning throughout their career because teaching is always evolving.
That's a good answer, Mr. Yazra. So, as a future teachers, how can we apply FPG in our practice?
Okay, so we as student teachers can apply the FPG in our practice, such as reflecting on your lessons to see what went well and what can be improved upon. You can use creative teaching method such as group projects, role playing, or digital tools. This can show empathy when students face difficulties and always be professional, be prepared, punctual, and always respectful to other people. So, by doing these things consistently, you are already living the FPG and continuing and contributing to the vision of the FPK.
Well said. So, well, you're right. The FPG must fulfill the vision, which is FPK, as future teachers. From the perspective of the IP, I mean from the perspective of the FPG, what do you think are the biggest responsibilities of a teacher in today's classroom?
So nowadays, today's teacher carry more responsibilities than before. In the past, teachers were mainly the main source of knowledge, but now, with the internet, students can find information on their own. So the teacher's role has shifted from being the giver of knowledge to being a guide, mentor, and role model of the students. So the FPG reminds us that teachers are not only responsible for academics but also for shaping the students' values, attitudes, and character. This means that teachers must be a good example in their actions and behaviors. So students learn not only from what we say but also from how we act. Another responsibility is to adapt with different learning methods. In one class, there may be a fast learner, slow learners, and students from different cultural or language backgrounds. So the teachers need to use a different teaching method. Maybe they can use methods such as group work, projects, or digital tools to make sure everyone learns at the same pace. Finally, teachers must be lifelong learners themselves. The world keeps changing, and if the teachers stop learning, they cannot prepare the students for the future. By attending workshop, learning new skills, and reflecting on their teaching methods, teachers are already fulfilling the FPG and are staying relevant for the future.
Okay, Mr. Jazra, for the final question, what is your hope for the future of education in Malaysia?
Okay, so my hope for the education system of Malaysia is so the education can keep on improving, keep on changing for the betterment of our students. And I hope that it will continue to balance a global competitiveness with other countries, with first world countries. And I want to see students that we are producing that have a strong values such as I've mentioned, respect, responsible students, and also knowledgeable. And also, they cannot forget about their national identity. And I think students should also be innovative in their ways because with the 21st century right now, with the technologies that we have, they need to be adapting a lot more faster than before. Students who are innovative is nice, but we should also, as a teacher, be improving the students' values, such as being kind and responsible. I also hope that teachers will always be respected as professionals and will keep on growing in knowledge and skills. If both students and teachers live by the FPK and FPG's spirits, Malaysia's education will remain strong in the future.
I think that is all for the interview today. Thank you so much,
Right.
Mr. Jezra,
Thank you for inviting me also.
thank you for sharing your views with us today. Okay, to summarize, the Malaysia's education has developed through many reforms, from the Razak report to education blueprint. The FPK emphasizes producing balanced individuals. The FPG focuses on shaping teachers who can help achieve the vision, which is FPK.
So, both are still very relevant today. As future teachers, it is our duty to practice these philosophies in our classroom and contribute to the progress of our society. That concludes our interview. Thank you for watching.
Assalamualaikum and hello. This video will summarize the development of education in Malaysia and how it relates to the National Education Philosophy FPK and the Teacher Education Philosophy FPG. We will look at how education has grown since independence, what the FPK and FPG mean, why they are important, and how they guide both students and teachers today. Education has always been one of Malaysia's top priorities. After independence in 1957, leaders believed education was the key to building the nation. Schools were not only places to learn subjects, but also places to bring together children of different races and religions. The first big step was the Razak Report of 1956. This report became the foundation of our education system. Its main goal was unity through one national system while still allowing diversity. For example, Bahasa Malaysia became the main medium of instruction, but space was still given to vernacular schools. This balance was important to respect the country's multicultural society. Then came the Education Act of 1961, which made these policies official. It also helped more students gain access to education. Over the decades, many reforms continued. In the 1980s, the Integrated Co-curriculum for Primary School (KBSR) was introduced. It focused on the 3M skills: reading, writing, and counting, but also added moral values and life skills. Later, in the 1990s, the Integrated Co-curriculum for Secondary School (KBSM) was created. This curriculum was more holistic. It gave importance not only to exams but also to co-curricular activities such as sports, societies, and uniform units. In the 2000s, the focus shifted to STEM education because Malaysia wanted to prepare students for careers in science and technology. And in 2013, the Malaysia Education Blueprint 2013 to 2025 was launched. It introduced 11 shifts, such as improving teacher quality, encouraging higher order thinking, making schools more efficient, and closing the gap between urban and rural education. All these steps show that education in Malaysia has always aimed to produce students who are knowledgeable, skilled, and guided by values. And then the National Education Philosophy, or FPK, was officially introduced in 1988. It says that education is a continuous effort to develop a person in a holistic way. This means education should touch all four aspects: intellectual, spiritual, emotional, and physical, with all guided by faith in God. In simpler words, education in Malaysia is not just about scoring high marks or getting good jobs. It is about shaping human beings who are balanced, moral, responsible, and useful for their families, communities, and nation. Every form in education shows the influence of FBK. For example, when schools include moral education, it reflects the spiritual and emotional part of FBK. When students join sports, debate clubs, or uniform units, it reflects the physical and social part. And when lessons encourage critical thinking and creativity, it reflects the intellectual part of FBK. Even modern reforms like teaching digital skills or 21st century learning are still linked to FBK because the aim is the same: to produce well-rounded people. Let's take a classroom example. A science teacher explains how pollution harms the environment. Instead of giving only facts, the teacher also asks students to think about their role in protecting nature. Here, teacher develop, the teacher develops both knowledge and values. Another example is when students join a debate club. They learn to argue and speak, but at the same time, they learn confidence, teamwork, and respect. So, the FPK acts like a compass. It gives direction to the whole education system and reminds us that the goal is to develop complete human beings, not just exam machines. Next is Teacher Education Philosophy, which is FPG. If FPK describes the kinds of students Malaysia wants to produce, the Teacher Education Philosophy FPG explains the kinds of teacher Malaysia needs to achieve the vision. The FPG says that teacher must be professional in their work, knowledgeable in their subject, caring towards students, creative in teaching methods, and ethical in character. This shows that teachers are not only responsible for teaching subjects, but also for guiding students' values, attitudes, and character. Teaching is more than just a job. It is a trust and a noble duty. The FPK and FPG are closely connected. FPK describes the ideal students, while FPG prepares teachers to make that vision real. So basically, the FPG and FPK both need each other. The FPK wants to create the ideal student, and the role of FPG is to prepare students that could make the ideal student, basically preparing teacher to make the vision come to life. For example, if FPK wants students to be critical thinkers, then FPG ensures teachers are trained to encourage thinking in the classroom. A good Malaysian teacher should be adaptable, empathetic, and willing to keep learning. In the past, teachers were the main source of knowledge, but today, with Google and AI, information is everywhere. The teacher's role has changed from being the knowledge giver to being a mentor, guide, and role model to students. This makes the job of teachers even bigger today. They must handle different student needs, including students who learn fast and slow, use technology effectively like digital tools or online learning. They also have to show good moral values through their own behavior. By living the values of FPG, teachers make the goal of FPK a reality in school. But some people may wonder, are FPK and FPG still relevant today? In a world full of globalization, online classes, and artificial intelligence? Well, in my opinion, the answer is yes. The methods of teaching may change from blackboards in the past to online platforms today, but the values in FPK and FPG remains the same. Yes, technology can provide information, but only teachers and education can build characters, discipline, and responsibility. These philosophies ensure Malaysia's education system stays balanced, preparing students for global competition while keeping strong values and identity. In conclusion, education in Malaysia has developed through many important milestones, from the Razak Report of 1956 to the Malaysia Education Blueprint today. The FPK provides a vision, which is to produce balanced and holistic individuals, while FPG ensures that teachers have the qualities to guide students towards that vision. Together, they act as the compass of Malaysia's education system. They remind us that education is not just about knowledge, but also about shaping people who are moral, responsible, and ready to contribute to society. That is all from me. Thank you for watching.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. Today, I want to share a reflection about education in Malaysia. I will talk about how education has developed in our country since independence and how it is connected to two important philosophies. The first is the national education philosophy or Falsafah Pendidikan Kebangsaan, known as FPK. The second is the teacher education philosophy or Falsafah Pendidikan Guru, known as FPG. I chose this topic for reflection because education is the foundation of everything. It is not only about knowledge or exams, it is about values, skills, and character. It is about unity, identity, and progress. When we look at the FPK and FPG, we can see that they are not just documents, they are guides, like a compass, that show us the direction for our education system and for our role as future teachers. Let us first think about the development of education in Malaysia. Since independence in 1957, education has gone through many changes. Right after the independence, the government made education a national priority. One of the earliest efforts was the Razak Report in 1956. This report wanted to bring all the races together through one education system while still allowing space for cultural diversity. It was not an easy task, but it showed that education was seen as the main tool for national unity. In 1961, the Education Act was passed. This act gave power to the policies from the Razak Report. It also expanded access to schools so that more children could get basic education. Over the years, the government introduced new curricula and reforms. In 1980s, the Integrated Curriculum for Primary Schools, or KBSR, was introduced. In the 1990s, the Integrated Curriculum for Secondary Schools, or KBSM, followed. These were important because they did not only focus on academics, they also included moral values, thinking skills, and co-curricular activities. For example, under KBSR and KBSM, schools encourage students to join clubs, societies, and sports. Students learn teamwork in football, discipline in uniform units like scouts, and confidence in debates or public speaking. These activities reflected a belief that education should be more than memorizing facts. In the 2000s, we saw a strong push for STEM education, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This way to prepare Malaysia for a world where technology plays a big role. Later, in 2013, the Malaysia Education Blueprint 2013 to 2025 was introduced. This blueprint listed 11 shifts to transform the system. Among them were improving teacher quality, focusing on higher order thinking, making education more inclusive, and preparing students for global challenges. When I reflect on this journey, I see a pattern. Education in Malaysia is always changing, always improving, always adapting. But the goal remains the same. The goal is to produce citizens who are knowledgeable, skilled, balanced, and responsible. Now, let me talk about National Education Philosophy, or FPK. This philosophy was officially launched in 1988. It says that education is a continuous effort to develop individuals in a holistic and integrated way. Holistic means it looks at the whole person, not just one part. Integrated means all parts of a person must grow together. The FPK says education should develop 4 aspects, which is intellectual, spiritual, emotional, and physical. All these aspects should be guided by faith in God. In short, the FPK wants balance. Students should not only be smart in the mind but also have strong character, good health, and spiritual grounding. Let me give some simple examples. Imagine a teacher teaching science. Instead of talking about a chemical process of pollution, the teacher also reminds students about their duty to protect the environment. This connects knowledge with values. Or think about sports. When students play football, they do not only exercise, they also learn teamwork, leadership, and discipline. In debates, students practice critical thinking but also learn respect for others' opinions. All of this shows the spirit of FPK. Some people may say that the FPK is too idealistic. They ask, can we really achieve all of this? My answer is yes, we can. The FPK is like a compass. A compass does not bring you to your destination instantly, but it shows you the right direction. Without it, we might get lost. Without the FPK, our education might only focus on exams or economic needs. With the FPK, we remember that education is about producing complete human beings, not just workers. I find this philosophy meaningful because it reflects Malaysia's identity. In some countries, education is only about exam results, but in Malaysia, we emphasize values, morality, and unity. This shows that we want students who are not only smart but also good and balanced. If the FPK is about students, then the FPG is about teachers. The teacher education philosophy describes the kind of teacher Malaysia wants. It says that teachers must be professional, caring, creative, knowledgeable, and also ethical. This means teachers must have strong subject knowledge but also be role models. The link between FPK and FPG is very close. The FPK tells us the kind of students we want to develop. The FPG tells us the kind of teachers needed to make that happen. For example, if the FPK wants students to think critically, then the FPG ensures that teachers are trained to use methods that promote critical thinking. If the FPK wants students to have good values, then the FPG expects teachers to show those values in their actions. I believe the FPG is very important to us as future teachers. It reminds us that teaching is not just a job. It is a responsibility and a trust. A teacher is not only someone who gives knowledge, but also someone who guides, motivates, and inspires. Students often learn more from how teachers act than from what they say. For example, if a teacher shows patience with a weak student, that student learns patience. If a teacher is always punctual and prepared, students learn responsibility. If a teacher uses creative activities like group projects or role play, students learn to think in new ways. All of this is part of living the FPG. Another important point in the FPG is lifelong learning. Teachers should never stop learning. The world changes quickly. Technology changes, society changes, students change. If teachers do not continue learning, they cannot prepare students for the future. Workshops, online courses, and even simple reflection after class are all ways teachers can keep growing. Now, I want to reflect on how FPK and FPG are still relevant today. Some people might think that these philosophies are old, but I believe they are timeless. Yes, our classrooms now have technology. Yes, students use Google Classroom, online quizzes, and even artificial intelligence. But at the end of the day, education is still about human beings. It is about teachers and students, values and character. Technology may change the way we teach, but it does not change the purpose of education. FPK reminds us to produce balanced human beings. FPG reminds us to produce teachers who can guide those human beings. We also face many challenges today. One challenge is diversity. Malaysia has many races, languages, and religions. Teachers must make sure that classrooms are inclusive. Another challenge is the gap between urban and rural schools. Some schools have better facilities and internet, while others struggle. A third challenge is globalization. Students today must be ready to compete in a world without borders. But these challenges are also opportunities. FPK teaches us to balance knowledge and values. FPG teaches teachers to be adaptable, creative, and ethical. If we hold on to these philosophies, we can face the future with confidence. In conclusion, the development of education in Malaysia has always followed a clear vision. From the Razak Report to the Education Blueprint, we can see that Malaysia is serious about building an education system that balances unity, knowledge, and values. As I reflect these philosophies, I feel inspired and also challenged. Inspired because the vision is beautiful, challenged because the responsibility is heavy. But I believe that if we, as future teachers, live by these philosophies, we will not only teach subjects, but we will also shape lives. And when we shape lives, we are shaping the future of our society and our country. Thank you very much for listening to my reflection.